back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
Reminds me of the Saturday Night Live sketch with Donald Trump in the People's Court. That was good on the weekend. All right, welcome back to The Law Show on CL 650. We're talking about personal injury. All joking aside, quite serious, of course. We have Kevin Hyde, partner at McQuarrie Hunter, and Nate Hartney, associate at McQuarrie Hunter. And we haven't even mentioned it. Nate's struggling through a cold. He's been a real champ. So well done. You know,
so they keep telling us to get closer together for some reason.
That's all right. We have that germ-killing stuff you put on when you leave, so that's good. All right, so we touched on some of the myths that surround personal injury. Now, one I think is quite interesting is the adjuster from ICBC is on your side. So you get into an accident, you go and you talk to them, and their MO is to kind of settle this and get it done quickly for the least amount possible. I'm guessing ICBC wants to curtail costs. So what typically happens in these situations, and how have you seen them change from what the adjuster has provided from ICBC to what you end up settling for? Can you give us some examples? So what happens in that situation?
So when a claim is open, an adjuster gets assigned to it, and the adjuster will contact the person who was injured. And what you have to remember is that the adjuster is an employee of a big corporation, and there are very strict standards that are set for the employees, performance standards. And one of the things that the adjuster is evaluated on at year's end is how little or how much money they have paid out to people.
So they get bonuses based on how little they pay out?
Well, they don't get bonuses necessarily, but that's part of their performance that they're judged on. And so that's, it doesn't mean they're a bad person, but in the back of their mind, they're always thinking, I need to reduce the amount and settle this claim for as little as I can.
And what people don't realize is that adjuster isn't your adjuster. That adjuster, if it's a tort action and you've been injured and it's no fault of your own, is representing the potential defendant or defendants' insurance.
And that's ICBC.
They're the insurer. If it's an ICBC insured, they're defending the interest of the defendant, the person at fault for the accident. So they're trying to settle that claim.
But isn't it almost a conflict of interest that they're double-ending the deal here? They're representing themselves most of the time, and they're trying to settle with you as somebody who's injured.
It's a very, very weird system in BC because when ICBC was created, they were created as a monopoly. And so when you have a claim, you're dealing with the same adjuster for your no-fault benefits, who's the same adjuster for the person that you're suing. So in other jurisdictions where there's no monopoly, there's all kinds of different insurance companies. The person you're suing is going to be represented by insurance company X, and you have your own insurance company who you're talking to get your no-fault benefits. And there's no communication between the two. But in BC, there is.
It's like in real estate, they got rid of that double ending. Yeah. You can't buy and sell a house for somebody. So in ICBC's case, that still goes on.
And we're not saying that it's wrong, but it's a strange system.
Okay, so when you have an adjuster come and sit next to you and say, they put a number in front of you, listen, we'll give you this amount of money for your whiplash or whatever it is, soft tissue injury. What are they trying to do? They're trying to get it down to as low a number as possible?
They're putting offers forward, usually fairly early, to people who are involved in accidents that's no fault of their own, to try to get rid of them quickly. Because if this injury, and it might be unbeknownst to that person who's about to sign the release, it could be a long-lasting injury. And ICBC is trying to get you to sign that release before you even know that. Then you're off the hook for the treatment, the Part 7s, and they're not going to be liable for a potentially large, tort claim, which would include loss of enjoyment of life, loss of future earning capacity, future costs of care, and so on.
And they must come across as being your friend.
They're your friend. The nicest adjusters are the first line of defense, essentially. And people have pleasant conversations with them at the start, and that's how they're trained. And it's essentially their goal in the end is to, hey, this, the person thinks, hey, this adjuster is giving me some free treatment, which you're entitled to whether you're at fault for the accident or not. And people just don't understand Part 7 benefits. Well, they're being very nice. And on top of that, they're going to give me $5,000 or $10,000, just a couple of weeks after the accident. That sounds great at the time. But in the reality is when you get a lawyer to assess it, and we argue and negotiate, I shouldn't say argue, negotiate with ICBC on their behalf, looking at all these various heads of damage, and I mentioned a few, such as loss of enjoyment of life, past wage loss, loss of future earning capacity, future cost of care, loss of housekeeping capacity, special damages. Well, before I became a personal injury lawyer, and most lay people out there don't even know about these heads of damages and really have no business trying to quantify what their claim is worth.
You must get some people that's an enormous amount of money. $10,000 can solve a lot of their financial problems, get rid of their credit card debt and all that kind of stuff.
And ICBC realizes that and preys on those people for an early settlement.
And so when you come in and you say this is going to take a year maybe, and they're looking at $10,000 now, that's a tough argument on your part, I'm sure.
It is. But when we, for example, I'll say we've had clients in that come to us and we see a potentially large claim. You know, for example, someone who's a few years ago, I had a construction worker.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you give us
for a significant amount of time?
Yeah, can you give us an example of what maybe ICBC put forward and then where you ended up?
Sure, of course. And for this fella came in and he met with me and he didn't actually end up retaining us because he was offered the $10,000. And I said, well, you know, you're a construction worker. You're still off of work at this point of time. You going forward, maybe with he has a grade 10 education. He's really just been relying to earn his income off of his physical attributes.
Sure.
And he's about to settle his claim for $10,000 when we don't know that perhaps he has to go for retraining and completely cannot do this type of work anymore. Perhaps he has to take a lower paying job. He was, going up to Fort Mac and making a killing, doing some tough work up there. And now he can't do that work anymore, and he has to go work at maybe McDonald's or can't even do that because he can't stand for prolonged periods of time. We don't know, but I explained the risk to the person. But because of their situation, they just go and sign that release, and
so
they lost a potentially large claim.
Now we have about 3 minutes left. So do you have any instances where someone was offered, say, well, pick this number again, 10,000, and then ended up with a significantly larger settlement?
I just settled one the other day on the eve of trial, and it was what ICBC calls a low velocity impact collision, which means there's very little damage to the vehicle. And they go in with the impression because of that little damage, which isn't the case at law at all, which the science doesn't prove whatsoever, and the courts or doctors don't agree with it. But because it was a minor impact and little damage, that this is not warranting a large award because the person can't possibly be injured. Well, in this case, she had a very objective injury, which this should be clear cut. She had an osteochondral fracture of her heel from hitting the brake, and this light tap hit, and she injured her foot, and it's caused her problems. She couldn't do her secondary job as a waitress at night, and so on and so on. So this was a potentially large claim that ICBC just ignored because it was an LVI before. And she'd been offered, I believe, $20,000, and we ended up settling for, I'm not going to tell the exact number, but a multiple of that? Yes, several times over. And she goes, thank goodness I came to you before, because I was about to take that $20,000, and they were convincing me at ICBC that because it was such minor damage that no one would believe I'm possibly as injured as I'm saying I am. No one would believe that I'm having all these problems and I can't be a waitress anymore because, hey, look at the pictures, look at the vehicle. There's no damage to it. So how could you be? And she was almost convinced that even though she had this objective injury and that it was having this effect on her life, that she wasn't as injured as she in fact was.
Well, I have
the 20.
I had a rear ender. I was at a stop sign and the fella hit me, and he probably hit me at 2 kilometers an hour. There was zero damage. And I just brushed it off and said, oh, well, there's no problem here, and away we go. Well, the next day I woke up and my neck was killing me. I went to the chiropractor, went to the massage therapist, and then it was about 3 days later, and I realized, oh, wait a second, you were tapped by that car. I'd forgotten about it. And I had, it went away in a few days, and it wasn't a long-term issue, but the car was barely moving and I had an issue. So I can see how that could affect it, Yeah,
definitely. There's people all the time that have these low-impact collisions, and there's very little damage, and, ICBC holds on to that, but that's not the reality here. The doctors are the ones that are going to talk about your injuries, and there's various factors, how your body was positioned when you were hit and whatnot, and
well, we only have a minute. We've gone through our first show with you guys, and it's gone very, very quickly. We have about a minute left. Now, Nate, what's your advice? You've been in an accident, somebody's listening, they have a daughter or a son or a grandchild, anybody that's listening to this, what do you say to them?
Obviously I'm biased and I have self-interest, but you see a lawyer, really. It's not a fun thing. Nobody wants to go see a lawyer. It's like going to see the dentist, right? But do it because it's not going to cost you anything and you're going to get free advice at the very least.
And what What do you have to say?
We're here to help you. And as I said, I used to work for ICBC, and now I'm on the plaintiff side. And you know, unlike maybe family where people walk away and no one's happy, you know, we're here to try to put you in the best position possible as a result of something that usually was not your fault at all and has had significant impact on your life, both professionally and personally. And we can help you quantify that. We can help you hold your hand through this ICBC process and take that on for you so you can just concentrate on getting better and recovering from your injuries. And we can ensure and give you the peace of mind that you have a fair settlement for what you've had to go through. And that's why you have insurance.
Macquarie Hunter is, now we wrote it down, it's a Central City, Surrey Central. So you can get, it's either way, right? It's either or either.
Either or either. You got
it.
All
right. So that's Kevin Hyde. He's a partner at Macquarie Hunter, and also joining us in studio is Nate Hartney, associate at Macquarie Hunter in Central Surrey. Thank you, gentlemen. A great first job, by the way. I know being on the radio is not what you do.
Nate wasn't 100% either.
No, he had a cold. I mean, I should put the judge's robes on, and then we'll get Nate fired up.
Yep, that's right.
We'll continue our conversation another time. Thank you very much for being on The Law Show. I'm Zach Spencer. I'll speak to you next time on CL 650.